So let's get going with search marketing best practices. Welcome. All right, welcome to the New Life event. My name is Shauna Siegel, and I am the host, and I am the CEO of One Choice for Your Store, the host of Ecom Experts on Webmaster Radio. I love education, and if you want to learn more about me, just go check out my bio because we are here for the New Life event. So we have a special thank yous to our speakers. We would not have this event without our wonderful speakers. We would not have this event without our audience because you guys are the sponsors of the event. It's your job to get out there and tell people about this event, because if you guys don't get out there and spread the word, then nobody shows up and these speakers won't come back. And we are getting some amazing free education, so we really want them to come back over and over again and give us this really great education. We are giving some awesome prizes throughout the entire weekend, and there is 3 great grand prizes that are going out to 3 lucky winners as well. That is a tremendous prize. You can learn about that at twitter-winner.com. So if you're tweeting, make sure, put in newlifeevent.com. Go to newlifeevent.com and click on the retweet button. Include @newlifeevent. Make sure, absolutely sure, you've got the hashtag NLE in all of your tweets. If you use that tweetchat.com that we have got set up, it will automatically put that hashtag in for you. So that way you make sure that every time you send out a tweet, you are automatically entered for all of the different contests. So that's why we like this chat room. It does all the hard work for us. For upcoming schedule, we are 2 webinars down. We have 4 more to go tonight. Good stuff. Excellent stuff for tonight. The 17 resolutions for email marketing I'm looking forward to. I've read the article written about it, and it's just phenomenal. Google Places and is there ROI in social media. That 9 o'clock one is going to be interesting too. Matt is going to be giving out one of his, giving away one of his viral graphics free to 1 lucky winner. And those have the opportunity of going viral and creating a massive amount of traffic for you. So definitely make sure you're here for that one. All right, so if you have questions, you can always send them to @newlifeevent using Twitter, or ask questions on the right-hand side of your screen. I'm going to go ahead and pass the controls on over to Jean, and I'm looking forward to the, although maybe throaty content, it will be excellent content. So Jean, welcome to the New Life event, and if you could start out by telling us a little bit about you.
Yeah, hey guys, I don't think I'll be too throaty,
Okay.
thankfully. It's a little weird because I know there's like, 100 or so people here, and they can hear me, but I can't hear them. So,
Yeah.
there's a little now there's a little chat pod down there. Do you administer that, Shauna, or will I?
We will take care of that for you, and we'll ask you all those questions at the very end, unless we get a whole bunch of questions where people are like, what did he just say? Then we'll interrupt you. But other than that, I'm going to mute myself and listen to you.
Sounds great. Okay, guys. So yeah, hey, I'm Jean Pappalardo. Everybody calls me JP because my name's a little complicated. I've been with Yahoo about 4 years. I've worked in several departments, including Yahoo Small Business. So when I dialed in about 20 minutes ago, I heard you guys talking all about the different YSMB merchant solution packages and all that. And I used to be one of the frontline reps who sold and supported that product, amongst other things like hosting and Yahoo Local and Yahoo Search. So I've actually been with Yahoo since the old Overture platform, supported Overture, switched to Panama, and now in this modern world we're talking about Ad Center. So my presentation today is probably going to run about half an hour. Like Shauna mentioned, I'm a little throaty, and basically we're just going to cover some basics on search optimization, SEM, what a good SEM campaign in the new Ad Center world looks like. I know there's probably a lot of different familiarity levels here, so I'm going to keep it pretty high level, but I'm also going to, whenever possible, highlight some of the differences between the way Ad Center is today and the way maybe Panama used to be. I mean, one of the things we've noticed on my team is there's a number of advertisers who still try to do things the old way, or maybe do things the way they do on Google. And Ad Center has a number of key differences that I'll highlight as we go. So let's just hop into it. For today, we're going to talk about some SEM best practices. I have a few slides on mobile search and their best practices. For the e-commerce side, not really. I know this is a real emerging market. I'm going to really highlight the hi-fi devices, iPhone, Android, Windows 7 mobile, iPad, stuff like that, because I think that there is some real potential ROI for advertisers in that space, and we'll touch on that. And then, like Shauna said, we'll end with some Q&A. So let's just hop right into it. We're going to cover best practices on a variety of topics today. We're going to start with keywords, and that's just selection, and also a little bit of a glimpse at the terms canonicalization, or in the Ad Center terms, actually normalization. Now that sounds awfully technical, but it's basically if you type in something as a keyword on a search engine and you misspell it, or you spell it in a different way, or maybe you type in a word like automobile. What normalization is it's just a mapping process that takes a bunch of keywords and maps them to fewer keywords. So in the case of something like automobile, it might be mapped to something simpler like car. And so as far as the search engine is concerned, the keyword car and the keyword automobile are going to be interchangeable. And the same is true for a lot of other scenarios that we'll get into. Then we're going to talk a little bit about landing pages. This is actually really, really big deal with Ad Center. When the Search Alliance launched with Microsoft last October, a lot of advertisers were not prepared for this. They had kind of come from a school of using the simplest and not particularly content-rich landing pages, and it's turned out that it's been sort of I think a lot of advertisers have experienced some growing pains here, because Ad Center really, really weights pretty heavily content on landing pages. So for an e-com site that has a lot of rich content, a lot of products, stuff like that, you're fine. But if you happen to have a little one-page, give us your information, a lead gen type form, you may see that there's some issues with that. So we'll talk a little bit about landing pages. We're going to talk about best practices for text ads. That's like the title and description of your ad. What makes a good ad? When should you use the keyword insertion features? The analog to that on Ad Center are called Params. We'll discuss that. Account structure, we'll touch on that a little bit. Basically, how should you group your ads and keywords and ad groups to maximize the performance of an account. And then we'll talk a little bit about budgeting. That's actually probably the simplest slide in the deck, because there's 3 different ways you can budget on Ad Center, and we have a best practice recommendation for that as well. All right, so let's get going. Keywords. Okay, so this is something I touched on a second ago, and you can see how it used to be and how it is now. So on the left, you'll see Yahoo Search Marketing. Back when we ran on the Panama platform, you can see that truck with a K, trucks plural, trucks misspelled with plural, and just the keyword truck were all canonicalized, say that 3 times fast, to truck. And you can see that the explanation there, canonicalization maps singular or plural variations and common misspellings to the primary form of the keyword. Okay, so that's how things used to be. Normalization is a little bit different. That's the Ad Center version of canonicalization. Single and plural variations and common spellings are treated as individual keywords and must be bid upon separately. So with Ad Center, this is a pretty big departure from the way things used to be with Yahoo, and it's one of those examples of a lot of advertisers being sort of unprepared for that transition to Ad Center, because you just need a lot more keyword coverage. So a best practice with Ad Center is to include all those common misspellings and plurals and singulars of all your keywords. This is more in line with how Google does it. So there's not too much of a change there, but a lot of people who just port over their Yahoo accounts to Ad Center are going to experience a real lack of coverage. And so if anyone on the phone has gone through the Yahoo transition process, which is pretty much an automated process, you may have found that once those keywords were running up on Ad Center, you actually saw a big drop in traffic, which sort of is counterintuitive because you're going from having just traffic from Yahoo to having the traffic combined from Yahoo and Bing. So people, one of the biggest questions, one of the most common questions I get is, hey, why did my traffic get cut in half or in a quarter? And this is usually the reason. They haven't built out their keywords properly. So this is one huge area of opportunity for all advertisers, and I think that everyone should take a good look at their keyword list and make sure they have the coverage that's necessary, because we are not taking every single variation, the spelling, and just mapping them to the proper keyword for you. So that's normalization, and hopefully that's a good insight to people who either, audience question, oh wait, this isn't for me, never mind. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Keyword parity. Let me move this little chat pod over here. Go away, chat pod. Okay. So, like we mentioned on the previous slide, Bing does not canonicalize search queries, and so coverage normalization packages are required. This is a little bit complex if you're uploading a third-party sheet, and when we say third-party sheet at Yahoo, we typically mean a Google sheet. You're basically going to be able to get a lot more keyword coverage. So best practice for us is not simply converting that Yahoo campaign over to a Ad Center campaign, but it is actually making sure that the keyword coverage is maxed out. And you can do that by either sort of by hand going through and adding all those terms, or if you have a well-developed Google campaign, you can import those sheets right into Ad Center. You can do other things for keyword expansions. You can aggregate terms. You can use semantically similar terms. And then obviously there's some holiday or seasonal stuff that you can dig into. So let's just move on to the next slide here. A little more color on normalization on Ad Center. Okay, so the second bullet that we talked about when I laid out our agenda was going to be landing page relevance. Now, again, this is a little SEO-centric, and it's a little counterintuitive for SEM guys because basically they've never really had to worry about that. Most people in the SEO realm have never really had to concern themselves with, is my landing page crawler friendly? I think that that's something that a lot of people don't expect when they do SEM. So basically, Ad Center is going to the process is called filtering. Ad Center is going to filter your ads on a variety of different reasons. One of them is your budget. One of them is the landing page relevance, and then the other is going to be your bid. So if you have a very low budget or a very low bid or a page that is deemed not very relevant to the search query, your ad has the potential to not show. So what that means is you can have a budget of $50 a day, but only be spending 10 of it for one of those three reasons. And usually it's a combination of all three. So if you do have an ad group that underperforms, you either have a bid that's too low, keywords that are either not relevant or a bit long tail, which basically implies that there's not a ton of search volume, or the third issue could be your landing page quality. So let's just run through these points here. The crawler, this algorithm that's going to filter your ads and limit the amount of time you're exposed, is going to be more picky and more likely to limit exposure based on the head terms than tail terms. So for example, if you have a keyword like trucks, that's going to be more likely to be scrutinized, and that landing page is going to be more likely to be scrutinized than something like, I'm trying to think of a good example, use Toyota truck. That's going to be a little more long tail, and you're going to be less likely to see that search on the search engine. The second point is match typing, which we haven't really got into too much, and again, because of the different knowledge levels here, I'll just briefly cover that. So there's 3 match types on Ad Center, again, identical to Google: broad, phrase, and exact. A broad match is going to basically be the broadest match type. Phrase match is going to require that the keywords all be in the right sequence. So the order of the keywords matters with phrase match. And exact match is just like it sounds, it's a literal one-to-one match. And basically what this point means, I mean, you can read the bullet here. Landing pages for broad and phrase match types are considered less reliable than landing pages for exact match types, which basically means that we are not going to weight landing page quality as heavily for broad and phrase matches than we are for exact matches. So when you have keywords that are really, really dialed in your campaign and you're saying to the system, I specifically want these keywords just like they are when I serve up my ads, we're going to look at that landing page a lot more in that situation. The last bullet, and this I actually have to ask a little bit about because I thought it was pretty complex. But basically, we're going to actually look at the algorithmic results, the top algo listing. It's algorithmic, that's an SEO term. So the people who actually just show up in the search engine without paying for it, those people in those natural search results, we're actually going to look at those pages. We're going to crawl them, and we're going to try to figure out if your content is similar to their content. So the example that we use here, if somebody has a keyword Galaxy tablet computer, which is kind of weird because the Galaxy tablet really is not really a computer, but it's made by Samsung, and the top listings all have Samsung on the site, which kind of makes sense, the system is going to basically look for Samsung on your landing page on the paid search side as well, and basically going to ding your quality score down if it's found that you don't have Samsung on your landing page. So the takeaway from all this stuff, because it's pretty complicated, is basically that your landing pages need to have rich content. They need to be relevant to the keywords you select, and in many ways they should resemble those algorithmic results in terms of the content that they have. So if your page has nothing to do with your keywords, or you have random keywords that you don't have content for on your landing page, you're going to have some issues with those particular campaigns on Ad Center. And in terms, but what I mean by issues is, I mean, you're going to be filtered, and you're not going to really get the amount of traffic you would expect. So that's another issue that a lot of people are running into. But like I said, it's more of a problem for these one-page lead gen guys than people with rich content on their site. But it does mean you need to build out that content and just include as much relevant information as possible on your landing pages. So let's move on. So there's a little bit more to the landing page relevance that we can cover. Search query, the relevancy algorithm looks for matches of the query in the title, description, and display URL, and the landing page. Okay, so this is actually pretty cool. Basically what this means is, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we get into the ad title and description section of this, but one of the things you should do is make sure your keyword is in your ad title or description whenever possible. Now that doesn't mean, you know, put it in there like 8 times. It does mean, though, if you can include it in the title description and have a relevant, appealing ad, that's going to help you from a quality perspective. And the same is true of having that keyword on your landing page, which we kind of touched on a little bit earlier with the Samsung example. Visible HTML text, I'll be honest, I read this and I don't quite get it. The relevancy algorithm only crawls visible HTML text on the landing page. Images don't count. Oh, okay, well that's not too bad. You know, basically this is just some SEO stuff. You know, I think that there are some alt tags that you can use for your images. I'm not sure how deep that functionality does go with YSMD. I'm not really an expert on that with Merchant Solutions. But the main point of this is that we are looking at the text only, and we're not looking at the images or videos or anything like that, which, as you all know from an SEO perspective, is kind of an ongoing challenge. So text only. We look at the HTML code only on your site. So now we're getting into keyword insertion versus parameter insertion. So this is, again, this is a little nitty-gritty, but I'll cover the basics of it. We're talking about your ad titles and descriptions. You can see the examples there on your right. Free credit score online, instantly view your credit bureau reports, plus get your 3 scores free. Okay. And then the second ad reads, free credit score online, see your 3 national credit scores and reports instantly online. So we have 2 different ads. You'll notice the top ad, it's not really formatted nicely. you'll see that the title is actually in lowercase, which we'll touch on a little bit. So there's two ways to get your keyword inserted into an ad title, description, or URL on Ad Center. One is the bracket keyword term, and then the other is that bracket param2 term. The difference is that the bracket keyword term is not going to capitalize it. It's going to take that lowercase bitted keyword and it's going to insert it. And for that reason, we, in my department and my team at Yahoo, we don't consider the keyword bracket a best practice. So let's just kind of run through this, and I'll talk a little bit more of this as I go through this slide. Bracket keyword insertion inserts the actual bitted keyword with no opportunity for alt text. What alt text is something that you manually write as an advertiser. Okay. So basically for these two titles, we have a scenario where it's essentially fill in the blank. Those titles have the potential to have anything in there that you want. So you can see the first example, the keyword is free credit score online, and the title is just fill in the blank, bracket, keyword, bracket. And the downside to that is the keyword is lowercase because all keywords in Ad Center are lowercase, and we remove capitalization. And that ad title is going to be lowercase, which is going to look good. In the second example, corresponding to the second ad, the keyword's the same, free credit score online, but you've manually gone in and you've written a param2 for it that properly capitalizes everything. And instead of using the bracket keyword for the title, you're using the bracket param2. So the difference is in one scenario, the keyword with the brackets is something that the system will automatically feed in. You don't have to do anything else. It's going to always do that. The downside being the capitalization is usually off. With param2, you have to write that for each keyword, which is not that hard. If you use like an Excel macro or something, it's pretty easy to make them all properly formatted. And then we're using that param2 field for the title in the second example. Now, keywords over 25 characters will not serve unless default text is provided. So this is actually pretty complex. So if you have a really, really long keyword, like free credit score online, I'm always really terrible at coming up with examples. But if you have a keyword that's longer than that, because that's roughly about 20 characters. So if you have a, let's say, free Experian TransUnion credit score online, or something like that, that's going to be longer than 25 characters. And so the system, when it goes to try to fill in the blank with that, it's not going to be able to because it exceeds the 25 character limit. And so the bracket keyword colon default text will basically sub in something if the 25 character title limit is exceeded. So if you have a really, really, really long keyword in there, if you have that default text, it's going to go for that default text in situations where the 25 character limit is exceeded. Because if it tries to fill in the blank with something longer than 25 characters, the system's not going to serve the ad. So default text is a way to have sort of a standard title in the case of really, really long keywords. It doesn't come up that much. Now, that being said, 25 characters is pretty short when you think about it. So if you do have an account with a ton of long keywords and you are really involved with alternate text and keyword insertion, it definitely is in your best interest to use that default text whenever possible. So just get that in all of your ads, and that'll save you a lot of headache. The best practices for keywords would be either to capitalize all raw keywords and use the default text in ads, or use param2 to ensure proper casing, word art, and spelling. I actually personally prefer the param2 route. It only takes a second, and you know it's done right. The other option, according to this, which is sort of news to me, is that if you actually go into your account and make sure all your keywords are capitalized properly. So if you, instead of having lowercase free credit score online, if you have capital F, capital C, capital S, capital O, that is another way you can do it, and that should work well. I like the param2 route, and that is pretty much how all of the campaigns at Yahoo that we set up are run. So that is alternate text, and it is considered a best practice. You may also recall from the previous slide, we talked about having your keywords in your ad title and description. Well, one thing I want to highlight on is if you look at these two ads, you'll notice that in the descriptions, the words credit, credit scores, and online are boldfaced. I'm looking at the second ad. To be honest, there's some weird boldface going on in the first ad that I don't quite get. But if your ad has your keyword in it, we are going to boldface the terms that that are from that keyword. So in this case, the keyword free credit scores online, you'll see that see all 3 national credit scores, okay, that's part of the keyword, and reports instantly and online. So credit scores online are all bold. You can't really tell from the slide, but free credit scores online, the title is actually all boldface as well. It's a little hard to see on this slide. But that also, like we've talked about a little earlier, is going to influence your relevancy. It's going to improve the quality scores and all that for your ads. So this is definitely considered a best practice. Param 2 is considered alt text for keywords. It controls how your keywords are going to be appearing in your ad. Capitalize, use correct spelling, rearrange. That's also a great point. We talked earlier about how Ad Center's normalization doesn't really account for misspellings. So in that previous example, you have trucks, T-R-U-K-S. Your Param 2 is probably going to want to be trucks properly spelled because, you know, if you have an ad that says get your trucks, with T-R-U-K-S, that doesn't look too professional. So another vote for Param usage over keyword usage is going to be those misspelled terms. Important there, if you are using Param 2 in your ads without default text and your keywords do not have Param 2, those ads may not serve. So basically, if you forget to do a Param 2 for a keyword, it's not going to serve that ad. So you need to make sure you do it for all your keywords if you do it. If you do it, you have to do it for the whole account. That's pretty much it. And as you can see, the best practice is to create Param 2s for all keywords. Now, Param 1, we're not going to get into this too much because this is a little bit complex, but basically we're going to use Param 1s for URL insertion. If you're using keyword-specific URLs for tracking purposes, again, this is a big departure from the Yahoo system where you could actually just punch in a keyword-level URL. On Ad Center, we actually use Param 1 for the destination URL when we are using keyword-specific URLs. So for your ads, your destination URL will actually just read Param 1, and then next to each keyword, you're going to have a custom URL that you put together that corresponds to that keyword. And so it's going to sub in that URL for that specific keyword in your ad. And again, if not all keywords have Param 1 URLs and you use Param 1, the ad destination URL, keywords with URLs will not serve. Okay, that makes sense because if we don't have a URL for your ad, we're not going to serve it because you're not going to be able to direct traffic anywhere. So it's sort of like Param 2s. We do choose to use destination URLs on the keyword level. We use that Param 1 field, and you need to make sure you do it for every single keyword. So that's how a little taste of how you do keyword level tracking with Ad Center, but I would probably save that for a different conversation. This is more about Param 2s and how using properly formatting your keywords and your ads, titles and descriptions is going to help improve your performance on Ad Center. This slide I like because it's nice and simple. Is about ad rotation. So if you have an ad group, what's an ad group? It's a bunch of keywords and some ads. And it can be pretty much as many keywords and ads as you want. We have a best practice of roughly anywhere from 4 to 8 ads in an ad group. And Ad Center automatically is going to actually pick the best performing ads and serve it 90% of the time, with the remaining 10% being rotated evenly amongst the other ads. Now, what do you mean? What do we mean by best performing ad? Well, we look at metrics like click-through rate, and if you have conversion tracking enabled, we're going to look at conversion rate. We're going to look at what ad performs the best, and we're going to serve that one up the most for a particular ad group. Ad rotation is auto-enabled, and one of the interesting things about Ad Center is actually something you can't turn off on Panama with Yahoo. You could. A best practice is considered that if Ad Center picks ads that aren't performing in accordance with your goals, remember to pause them. So Ad Center may, for whatever reason, pick an ad that you don't like. Maybe the conversions are high, but the average sales are really low, or maybe the click-through rate's great, but you're not getting the conversions that you would want from it. So those are various things where even though the Ad Center algorithm has sort of the best intentions, but you may need to go in there and manually pause or delete the ad that's sort of getting the lion's share of the traffic. For whatever reason, it may not be performing in accordance with your goals. So it's something you definitely want to keep an eye on. And so a best practice is to always go into those accounts every week or 2 weeks and just check out your ads and make sure that the pony that Ad Center has bet on with respect to ad performance is actually the one that's aligned with what you're trying to do. So that's the ad rotation feature of Ad Center. Again, this is something I don't want to dwell on too much. I think I have like 2 or 3 slides on this. Actually, I took out most of them because it's a little complicated. But match typing, which we touched on a little bit earlier. With match typing, there's like we talked about, 3 different match types: exact, phrase, and broad. And there's various strategies that you can use as an advertiser to break out the bids for those. The best practice is to bid separately by match type within the same ad group and on the same keyword. So it's not to have the same keyword like 3 different times or in 3 different ad groups, but actually keep that keyword in one ad group and break out the bids in that one ad group. There's actually new features, something that we couldn't do in Yahoo. And again, this is pretty comparable to the way you can do it on Google. You can track by match type URL. So this is a tracking URL feature if you're using any kind of analytics platform to track your performance. You can actually feed in that bracket match type into the tracking URL, the destination URL, that you can do, if you recall, on either the ad level or the keyword level with Param 1. You can feed in that match type. So that bracket match type is basically a variable. And so it's going to tell your analytics, okay, this person came on a phrase match or a broad match or an exact match. So you can track like that. And also, we obviously have reporting within the Ad Center interface that lets you figure out exactly how many clicks you got on a broad, phrase, or exact level. You may also notice that the best practice is considered to bid more in exact than phrase and more in phrase than broad. The reason for that is because if you think about the match typing, an exact match is going to be a really specific search. In the case of cars, probably not the best. But if you sell, like, 18th century cuckoo clocks, that search is a very powerful and very valuable search. If somebody's looking for that, they are most likely interested in buying one. And so in that scenario, the exact match to that keyword is going to be the most valuable to an advertiser. The phrase is going to be the second most valuable, and broad going to be the third, because the broad could cover a much wider array of searches than phrase or exact. So that's basically bidding by match type. There were like 5 more slides on this. I didn't want to get bogged down into this, so I want to just move on to some other stuff that we can cover. Because I said a half hour, and we're just going strong here. Once I get started, I don't stop. All right, getting negative keywords right. So this is something we haven't really discussed so far. Negative terms are actually they're a way to control whether or not your ads show up. To me, with e-commerce, the sort of the holy grail of negative terms is free or information. Those are 2 words. I don't know about, I used to work retail a long time ago, and whenever everybody came to the store and said they were looking for some information, I usually knew they weren't going to buy anything. And the same really applies online sometimes. So negative keywords. We're going to have a quick discussion about some negative keyword best practices. So if you had a negative keyword such as free, okay? And let's just use this example here. Let's not oversimplify things. So they have a keyword for stock quote, and I have a negative keyword, free real time, okay? You can look at the example. Basically, negative keywords are always applied as a phrase match. Now, that's actually pretty interesting. This is something that when I went over this deck, this was news to me. So what does that mean? It basically means that for your keyword to not serve up, the sequence of the query needs to correspond to your negative term. So in this example, simplified, it basically means that they need the terms free, real time, in that order for the negative terms to properly function and not show your ad. So in the first example, you have free stock quote. That ad's still going to display. The second example, real-time stock quote. That ad's still going to display. In the third example, you have free stock quote real time. So you actually have all three of your negative terms in there, free real time, but they're not in sequence. So that ad's going to display. And then the last two examples just illustrate how the phrase match component of negative terms work. Free real time stock quote, well, you have the negative term free real time, so that ad is not going to serve up. And then stock quote free real time is also not going to serve up. So you need to make sure your negative term coverage takes this into account. And just remember, just because you have certain words as a negative term, the order matters. So that's bullet point 1. Bullet point 2, if one of your negative keywords is the same as your bid term, your keyword will not serve. So this is actually pretty interesting. So if you have a keyword like business checking, you have a negative keyword checking in. Now, normalization does apply to negative terms as well, not just keywords. And we're going to strip out what's called noise terms in Ad Center. It's one of the few things normalization does. So little words like of, if, the, on, in, we're actually going to strip out. So this is an example of a way you can kind of negative term yourself out of showing up if you're not careful. So just be aware if you're doing a lot of negative terms to make sure that you stick with the main terms and you don't have little noise terms. Basically, if it's 2 or 3 letters, it's probably a noise term. The, if, on, can, so forth, so on. There is no official list anywhere, but basically 2 or 3 letters. So in this scenario, we don't see checking in as a negative term. We see the word checking. And since you have business checking as a keyword, well, your negative term is in there, and it's just one word, it's checking. And so business checking won't serve. So in this scenario, a client might call me and be like, why am I not getting any clicks for business checking? And in this case, it would be a negative term issue. And then the third bullet is lower level negative terms override at the higher level. So you can do negative terms on tons of different levels, the campaign level, or the ad group level, or the account level. And basically, the lower level ones are going to override them. Now what that means is we're going to completely disregard higher level terms. Let me actually go over to the next slide. So, oh, look, a little chart. I love charts like this. So only negatives at the most granular level are considered per query. So basically, let's go to that chart on the left here. So we have campaign with negative keywords, calculator, institutional. And then we have an ad group with the negative keyword free. And then we have 2 keywords in that ad group. We have stock. And you can actually apply negative keywords on a keyword level. In this case, we have chicken, car, and photography. Like I said, I want to sell soup. And then quote has no negative terms. So let's just run through some scenarios. Again, we have 2 keywords, stock or quote. I'm not crazy about this slide because it doesn't tell you what match type those 2 keywords are actually using. I'm just going to assume they're broad. So for our search query stock calculator, because there are negative terms on the keyword level, we're just going to look at those terms. So in the case of the keyword stock, the only 3 negative terms we're going to consider are chicken, car, and photography. Now, for the example, free quote, it doesn't have any negative terms. You'll see a quote on the right side doesn't have any negative terms. So we're going to go up to the ad group level, which does have a negative term, free. And so in this case, the ad group level negative term is going to apply, and that ad's not going to display because the level of negative used in this scenario is the ad group level. Moving up to institutional quote, you'll see that the ad, in this case, this keyword will serve because that ad group level negative term applies because the keyword level doesn't have any negative terms. Essentially, in this example, we should never actually look at the campaign terms because we're always going to stop at the ad group terms. Now, I may say that and be completely wrong, but let's just run through the rest of these real quick. Stock photography is not going to serve up because that keyword stock has photography as a negative term. Free stock is actually going to serve up because we have keyword level negative terms for that, and none of them are free. So we're just looking for chicken, car, photography, and if we don't see those in the search, we're going to serve up that particular query. Quote calculator is going to serve because we're going up to the ad group level. So even though we have that negative term in the campaign level, in this scenario, because there are negative terms on the ad group level, we're going to stop right there. And so like I said earlier, we're not even going to look in this example at the campaign level negatives because we have ad group level negatives. So we're either going to stay on that keyword level or we're going to go to the ad group level. To save you guys a lot of time, the best practice is just do it in one place and keep it straight. If you've got it in 3 different levels like this, it's going to be a nightmare to figure out what serves and what doesn't. So I would just keep it really simple. I personally prefer keeping my negatives on the campaign level. I've never really seen a real use for granular keyword-specific negative terms, but if you do have a keyword that, maybe is giving you 60, 70% of your traffic for your whole campaign, it may make sense to go in there and have specific negative terms for that one keyword if that keyword represents a significant portion of your ad spend. But generally, my best practice, which isn't in this deck, is just do it in one place and save yourself a lot of headache. But hopefully this sort of tiering of negative terms does make a little bit of sense, and you'll find in Ad Center that this is pretty much echoed on a variety of different features. But like the slide says, in this example, the campaign negatives never block anything, and migrating negative keywords up to the ad group or campaign level is considered a best practice whenever possible. Again, I like the campaign level. All right. Now we'll kind of worry about going over on this. Oh, no, we're almost done. We're not done. Okay, so budgeting. This is fun, right? So 3 different budgeting options on Ad Center. You can do it at the campaign level. Well, let's just go over them real quick. Divide budget across the month. Attempts to deliver consistent traffic throughout the month. Automatically adjust the daily budget or run rate when the monthly cap is changed. One interesting thing about this is if you go in and launch a campaign on Ad Center on today, let's say you guys launched it today, and you said your monthly budget was $5,000. It would try to actually spend about $1,500 a day to hit the 5K number by the end of the month. So just keep that in mind. It is considered still the best, but when you launch a campaign mid-month, you just have to take that into account and maybe cut that budget in half so that you don't spend more than you expect, because I have seen some people get a little bit of sticker shock from that. Spend and depleted, nobody uses. Basically, you give us a number. When that number hits 0, you stop showing. And then daily targets is just the same as the old Panama budget, which is what I think everyone uses. Basically, you set a daily number, and you try to spend that. Ad Center does say that they do allow up to 20% overages there. So if you set a budget of 100, we can go to 120. And the reasoning for that is because the system is not going to, maybe, especially when you just start, the system's not going to really know exactly how much traffic you're going to get. And so by the time you hit your budget, your ads may still be up and running. I personally love divide budget across the month, apart from that one little sticker shock issue. You just need to make sure that you set that properly when you launch a campaign mid-month or towards the end of the month. But other than that, it works great, and it's gonna make sure that you don't leave money on the table. If you have a budget, if you have a daily budget, and you're not hitting that daily budget, if you have a daily budget of $100, you're only spending $10. Well, every day you're basically leaving $90 on the table, and you're not even giving yourself the potential to spend that as the month progresses. And as that month progresses, that issue gets worse and worse. Recommended is divide budget across the month, which I said, great. I like it when whatever my sort of shoot from the hip best practice coincides with the deck. That's good. Okay, so converting a campaign for Google. I'm not going to dwell on this too much. There's a lot of nuts and bolts to this. So one of the things that Google does that Ad Center doesn't is it has exact negative terms, which basically means that unlike the phrase negatives that Ad Center uses, Google has a different scheme for that, where basically you have to you can have exact match negatives. So that's one thing you have to take into account. Again, if you're really, really involved with your Google campaign, this probably won't be news to you. Budgeting best practice, Ad Center is going to throttle campaigns more when daily budgets are in place, like we talked about with that $100 a day budget where you're leaving 90 on the table. You don't want to import those Google daily budgets, and you definitely want to go into the interface and make sure you set the campaign budgets to the monthly level. You can do DMA. Well, with Google, you can do a lot of cool targeting. I know that you can go into and draw little maps and little, literally say exactly where you want to run. Ad Center's targeting is going to go down to the, we call them, they're like DMAs. They're called metro areas, I believe. And they're basically the same as DMAs, but I don't think they wanted to pay the DMA people to use the term. But it's the same basic thing. Bulk sheet codes are going to have these weird three-digit DMA codes. You're going to have to manually implement any sort of local geo-targeting in AdCenter. And also you can't do zip code targeting on AdCenter. So that's kind of a bummer. Geo exclusions, not going to fly on AdCenter. You can obviously set geo-targeting, but you need to do that within the AdCenter interface or with the desktop tool. And normalization. This is something where if you have a rep at Yahoo, they can definitely help you out with this. If you don't have a rep, there's a number of tools that you can use. Some of them are in Google's end, some of them are in AdCenter's end, but basically there are ways to figure it out. It's also a common sense thing like what we talked about earlier. And again, I would actually focus on maybe the top 10% of your terms for build out. You know, I find a lot of campaigns I run, they come down to maybe 10, 20 sort of meat and potato terms. And so you really want to focus on them, make sure you got them all properly built out. You got all the misspellings and all that. And that's going to probably be the best bang for your buck in terms of time you spend if you're doing this on your own. So I want to just cover mobile best practices really quickly. And like I said, because this is predominantly an e-com focused area, I'm not going to really talk about getting these ads on like a Samsung like flip phone that like your grandma has, because I mean, let's be honest, I see that, in terms of e-com, I see hi-fi phones like I mentioned before, Android, iPhone, iPad. Those are the real future, and people who own those phones are willing to make purchases over their phone. So we'll talk really quickly about this. I only have about 15 minutes left, so I want to leave at least 10 minutes for Q&A and let you guys get a little bit of a break. So we're just going to cruise through this real quickly. There's let's pull up this whole deck here. So there's three targeting options available. You can target the low-fi phones, that's on the right. You can target the hi-fi smartphones. And then you can also just set your ads to run on PCs and hi-fi smartphones. So to me, that's sort of the best practice. You can, as you set up a campaign on AdCenter, you can target all devices, and that means desktops and laptops and smartphones and mobile devices with full web browsers. So same experience. You've got a savvy, connected user, and you don't have to do a lot of special stuff. I think when people hear mobile, they get worried because they have to have like a mobile version of their site, or they have to write like the WAP version of their site, which is like super, it's definitely a pain. Tracking issues pop up when you start talking about WAP versions of sites and stuff like that. So my best practice is really just to add it. It's a little add-on that you can do. Once you set up that campaign, you can go in there and actually just implement hi-fi smartphones, and that's going to add some additional traffic to your campaign. Let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, so there's all the lo-fi options. We can do some pretty cool stuff. You can click on the website. You can do a click-to-call feature where actually just that phone will literally just call whatever number you have plugged into your ad. There's some marketplace stuff, which is sort of a content ad. It's just sort of a text ad that shows up at the bottom of a mobile portal. I'm not really going to talk about this too much. Click-to-call, you can do one or the other. Again, I think that I want to limit this conversation to hi-fi. So hi-fi is pretty cool. You can do some smartphone targeting. You get the same ad text you get on the computer, which is why you have that option to just add them to an existing PC-based campaign, targeting desktop and laptop computers. You can do the same run-on-network stuff that you can do with lo-fi, which is sort of a contextual ad. And you can do some BlackBerry targeting as well. So there's some pretty cool stuff you can do. You can specifically target iPhone and BlackBerry currently. Real quick, mobile marketplaces. I was mentioning this a little earlier. So you actually see these little links at the bottom of Yahoo's mobile portal. Same for Bing. Basically, these folks have opted into this. You can do this on the hi-fi side as well. This is the lo-fi version. Just another way to get your ad on the mobile space. Here's the MSN version of it. You'll see there when you click there, you actually get these little contextual links as well. You'll notice they're the same, and that's because with Yahoo and Microsoft combining, we're going to have pretty much the same results, maybe in different places, but same search result. Guys, I can't believe it. That's actually the end of this deck.
Yeah, it was a lot of great information, And, you know, for a lot of our newbies, you might have seen things that you were like, wow, I have no idea what he's talking about. But I think the biggest thing for newbies to remember is that the landing page has to be relevant. Relevancy is so important. You're going to hear that a lot this weekend. So let's go ahead and get started with these questions. And you will hear relevancy a lot these weekends. So how does changing the order, I'm sorry, what were you going to add?
Oh, I'm ready to go. Let's get going with questions.
All right, great. How does changing the order in a keyword phrase, such as drinks green for green drinks, affect SEO?
Okay, so we're talking about drinks green, or green drinks, right?
Yeah, and how does changing the order of that affect the SEO?
Well, so on the SEO side, I'm not a huge expert, but I don't think it does. I think that the only time that's gonna that sort of change is gonna affect anything is if you're doing some SEM for a keyword like green drinks and you're opted into either a phrase or an exact match. The reason for that is because, like I mentioned in the presentation, phrase match for a keyword, the order is critical. So in the case of if you have green drinks and you have that set to a phrase match, and you type in drinks green, your ad's not going to serve up on Ad Center. It's not going to show up on Yahoo or Bing. From an SEO side, though, this is pretty distinct from SEO in the sense that you know, SEM has always been sort of the you know, stepbrother of SEO, you know, and they're very different, you know, animals. And but from my side of things, drinks green versus green drinks, if you're running broad match, you can, the order doesn't matter. You can do it either way. You can, if you have green drinks and someone types drinks green and you've opted into broad match, which is the most inclusive match type for SEM, you're going to serve up. With phrase or exact, however, going back to sort of my two takeaways, I want to kind of dovetail on what you said, are going to be landing page relevance and keyword coverage. It's the most important thing, in my opinion. It's probably holding back about 90–95% of our advertisers right now. I really feel that. So in this case, you just have to be cognizant of your match typing. And if you just, you know, do a quick search for match types on you know, Yahoo or Google or whatever, you'll find a ton of really, really good information, and I think you'll get a better feel for like what a phrase match is, what a broad match is, and what an exact match is. And you know, I wish I'd done a little bit of a better job on that, but hopefully that those resources on the web can help out with that. So in broad purposes, drinks green / green drinks, broad match you're fine. Phrase match or exact match, you're going to need to make sure you have both of those terms as fitted keywords in your account if you want to serve up. And from the SEO side, SEO is a lot less dependent on order than SEM is. At least that's my understanding. I don't know if you guys have an SEO guy.
Yeah, well, the big thing is it's relevancy, you know, and we have a book on our website. It's free. You know how much I love free education. It's called, you know, Content is King, Relevancy is Queen. So, you know, if you want to download that, it goes through very specifically, you know, how to add relevancy to the pages, and that will help you for those landing pages. We have a really great question here from Jerry. You were showing that example about the Galaxy tablet computer, and Jerry wanted to know, so would making the keyword example say Samsung Galaxy tablet computer work better than just the Galaxy tablet computer?
That's
with
a really
adding
awesome
that
question.
brand.
I'm really glad. Yeah.
Great question.
It's a great question. I think, yeah, it's really awesome. Okay, so with SEM, the more keywords, the better. I mean, it's kind of, you have nothing to lose, especially if you're getting more specific. I always shudder a little bit when I see somebody use an example of something like car as a keyword, because the ROI of something like that is not going to be great. You know what I mean? It's just too generic. It's too general. No one who searches car, I mean, maybe the guys like Chevy and Toyota kind of afford to bid on that, you know, but I think most like local dealerships and stuff really can't. So in that example, I'm trying to get back to it. There it is. a great question. I would make sure you had both keywords. You know, Galaxy tablet computer and Samsung Galaxy tablet computer. The point of that example was to show that we would need you to have the term Samsung on that landing page because top algorithmic guys were shown to have that word on their landing pages. So this example is really just about being similar to those top results in the search engine. And so when you're setting up a campaign, it might make sense to, you know, punch in your couple of your terms, look at the sites that serve up, and just make sure that you have similar content to them. And if you don't, make sure you have it. But to answer Gary's question, it would absolutely be a great term to add, and I would not see any downside to adding that term. But this example really is about landing page relevancy compared to those algo results. And so this example is more about making sure you have Samsung on your landing page because the other guys do too.
Excellent, excellent. There was a couple of questions, you know, that we had, especially like how do we know Google and Bing are properly noticing your keyword phrases. We're going to leave those for our SEO guys that we have coming up, especially we're running out of time. We want to make sure that we get those. The one last question that we want to make sure that we ask, and it's a great question, Jerry, and we'll do this as quick as we can so we can make sure to give you a break. What makes a negative keyword negative?
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so basically, yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, like negative terms are I mean, if I could pick a third thing, I've seen a lot of issues with negative terms recently where they're not properly implemented or people don't really understand them. Basically, in Ad Center and in Google, you know, in any other SEM providers, there's literally a field where you can go in, like I mentioned in my presentation, on the campaign level, the account level, the ad group level, or the keyword level, where you can literally go in and specify a series of negative terms. What that negative term is basically if we see that word or those words, and that's another really common thing, like people hear keyword and they just assume it's one word. It's not. I think think of them as key phrases, and that kind of helps. So if you see that sequence of words in a search, we don't show your ad in that scenario. And the reasoning for that is because people over time can identify certain queries that are not going to realize profit for them. And like I mentioned, a really common one is free. And with my electronics retail horror story information. So those are just two little examples. But what makes a negative term a negative term? It's a term that's punched into a specific field on one of those levels I mentioned, with the intent of not serving up your ads when that term is part of the search query on the search engine. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it does. And I cannot thank you enough for being with us. We appreciate it so very much, and I'm so sorry that you're not feeling well. I am so very sorry. I hope you get better soon.
I'm on antibiotics. I got some nice antibiotics. I'm actually feeling better since I put in an honest hour of work on this call. So I'm going to go drink some OJ and take a nap. And I really appreciate you guys having me today. And I hope it was informative. And honestly, that social thing you guys have sounds really cool. I might sneak in and listen to that as well.
I hope you will. I hope you will. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you so very much. Thank you.